How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. A lot to talk about on the show today. Tuesday, that means, yes, last night was the go-home edition of Monday Night Raw. And we'll start with the bad. The last thing was a Baron Corbin match. It was the main event of Raw. Other than that, I thought it was a pretty good show. I don't know if a lot of you remember, but in years past, sometimes the go-home show for WrestleMania, the go-home Raw, sucks. I did not think this show sucked. I thought there was a lot of good stuff on the show, so we can talk about that here today on the program. Whatever your thoughts are on Raw, WrestleMania, we got some notes as well. There appears to be a bizarre match for the Raw Tag Team titles that's going to be taking place. We'll talk about that here on the show today. I don't even know why it's being set up, but we're going to have 17 matches on the show. More will be announced tonight. We have SmackDown coming up tonight with all sorts of different things, including a segment with Kevin Owens and a Rey Mysterio Andrade match. There was no Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio match last night, as I had predicted last week. Didn't happen, and not one tonight either. So his final match will just be at WrestleMania, and hopefully it is quick. They also made official last night that, in fact, the tagline for the main event is winner take all. And over the weekend, as Dave was talking about the various ideas they had for taglines, one of them was winner take all, but it wasn't actually going to be winner takes all. Both titles would be on the line. So basically, if Ronda beat Charlotte, she would have both titles. Charlotte beat Ronda, she would have both titles. If either of them beat Becky, they wouldn't get anything. And if Becky beat either of them, she would get that person's title. Now they've changed it, or they've made it official. It is winner take all. Whoever wins the match at WrestleMania is leaving with the Raw and SmackDown championships. So there you go. That's the main event of WrestleMania. 844-411-5411 is the phone number today. 844-411-5411. Text messages 425-780-7566. Back in a moment with Mike Sempervive to kick it off. Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Let's start the show off hot today. Person says, as you predicted, Bryan, Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio did not happen last night. That's right. If you recall correctly, I did in fact say, mark my words. There's a very good chance that match isn't taking place, and it didn't. And on that same topic, as Mike brought up yesterday, I said we'd talk about it later, we didn't have time. Now we've got time. I defeated the War Pig, Jody Christopherson, this past weekend. All Pro Wrestling.
Oh, heavens.
I'm on a 3-fight win streak right now. And I am on my way. I am on my way this weekend. Friday, April 5th, Jersey City, New Jersey. I will be competing for the Independent Wrestling Championship against Orange Cassidy live. IndependentWrestling.tv and Fight TV. Both places you can watch this at Black Label Pros Adventures in Wrestling. But 2 days before that, Wednesday, April 3rd, 8 Eastern, IWTV kicking off their WrestleMania week schedule with the debut of Beyond Wrestling's new weekly series, Uncharted Territory. Every Wednesday night, Beyond will present a new episode live from Worcester, Massachusetts. IWTV featuring a who's who of independent wrestling's top stars. Head over to independentwrestling.tv. Subscribe today to be a part of indie wrestling history. Indie wrestling history when I become the face of independentwrestling.tv, defeating Orange Cassidy, squeezing Orange Cassidy, slicing Orange Cassidy. It's coming Friday, Black Label Pro Adventures in Wrestling. And yes, today, Drew Cordeiro, Beyond, IWTV, etc., will be on the show here in the final segment. So you can all get ready for that later on today.
I hope your first title defense is in Worcester, Massachusetts, and those people give you what for?
Worcester, Massachusetts. Maybe it'll be against Rush.
Up on the roof?
Yeah. Man, I smashed that guy this weekend, Mike. If only you'd been there. I got clips up on my Twitter right now if you want to see the finish, everybody. At Bryan Alvarez. I won clean as a sheet in the middle of the ring.
Wait a second.
Don't listen to anybody.
Wait. And there was a lot of things that happened around that match, too. By the way, not that I have to be the Mr. Blackwell of the independent wrestling world, but who dressed you and Filthy Tom? Who keeps telling you it's a good idea for you guys to rock those not even not even matching flannel cutoff.
What are you talking about?
Shirts that you have
No, it's because
on.
he lost his flannel that we had that was matching. I had to buy a new one the night before at Fred Meyer. That was the problem.
At Fred Meyer?
Yes. No, the problem was he lost his. He lost his black belt, he lost everything.
What?
Yeah, I got to take care of this guy the best I can.
Are you going to be able to get him to New York and New Jersey for MLW this weekend?
I'm not in charge of that. That's on him and MLW. I do what I can when we're together.
With him this week, don't you?
Do what?
No show with him this week?
No, he'll be traveling. Maybe we'll do something live. That's
my
plan.
God! Can you imagine filthy Tom lost in
Look at that super kick. 1, 2, 3. Clean in the middle of the ring.
You're watching your match.
3-fight win streak. That's right.
He's watching his
everybody.
match right
everybody
now.
is crying about how Bryan never wins. Blah blah blah. I was beat one time. That's it. And it wasn't even a illegal victory. And I have been unbeaten since. So I'm going in this match with Orange Cassidy a winner. And I'm going to come out of it a winner. And I'm going to be sporting that belt right here on this desk. Every day on Observer Live, that camera is going to zoom in on that nice, shiny gold belt, as I will be the champion of independent professional wrestling, which is bigger than the World Wrestling Federation, because it's worldwide, legitimately worldwide. I can't wait. All right, what did everyone think of Raw last night? What did you think?
It was a decent enough show. What mattered, which was the whole disaster area three-way between the women with all of the sight gags and smashing things and cops being tossed over, and that was fun. That was good. I liked that a lot, and frankly, that was the thing that carried the show for me. So, there's, like you said in the opening, there's been worse go-home shows for WrestleMania. This whole lead-up has not been stellar. 3 hours is too long. Beat that to death. Have to point that out every time, because if you made this a 2-hour show, man, it would be great. But we have to suffer through 3 hours, and it was long, and it was not as impactful as it probably should have been. But compared to what the rest of the lead-up's been, I'll take it. And I'll take it just because of all that nonsense with the women. And I thought that was a great way to close that. And I'm ready to kind of get Sunday here and not say over with, but I'm definitely ready to get this weekend here.
This person says, as a female WWE fan, I hated the women's segment on Raw. It killed any interest I had in this match. I hope Ronda's gone after Mania so we can put the focus back on the real women's wrestlers. It's stupid for the winner to take all unless they are going to unify the titles. Wow.
There's a lot of negativity in that text.
Hey, I got a lot of people. The arrest angle, this person said, was stupid. The girls were arrested for fighting with each other, then let go after 2 hours for assault on cops, damaging cars, and stealing a car. Well, listen, I'm not going to argue with that. I thought the angle was awesome and also dumb at the same time. But it was awesome enough that I overlooked the stupidity of the fact.
Hey, it's WWE in 2019.
Dude, they attacked cops. They attacked each other. They attacked cops after they were handcuffed. They brawled while handcuffed for 10 straight minutes. Where are the guns? Where are the tasers? You can't taser a woman? Is that what's going on here? This was out of control. Ronda steals a car, tries to ram her car into another car, which I'm pretty sure they could probably get an attempted murder charge on that one. This was insane. And then 2 hours later, they're out? They're going to wrestle on Sunday? That was a little tough to stomach, but I thought that it was very creative. Everybody, I thought, looked great. And I thought if you're going to do one big angle leading into WrestleMania, that was a great one to do. Nobody went to somebody's house, for crying out loud. This person says, Charlotte killed all kayfabe of the brawl and being arrested, since less than 10 minutes after the segment aired, she retweeted an animated GIF of the brawl on Twitter. Well, she probably should have waited a little longer. But maybe she's got a person that does her social media. Ever thought about that?
And let's be fair. This is a promotion where vehicular homicide has taken place in recent enough memory, back and forth, where can you really nitpick everything too much? I mean, you can if you really want to, and there's ways to artistically break it down, but this is one of those times where it's it's WWE in the last week before WrestleMania, and this is what they've been doing, is if they do the best they can, and that's what it is. I've seen them do the best they can, and it's been far worse. So I guess we can kind of nickel and dime this thing to death about like kayfabe wise what didn't work with it or what did work, but it's, I mean, really, we're gonna get to the minutia of this, of like Ronda stole the car. I mean, look what happens on a weekly basis on this show.
Well, she stole a cop car. That's the point. It was just any car.
Yeah, but every cop that tends to be around Raw is an idiot every week. You know what I mean? No matter what town they go in, they find the weakest bunch of Barney Fifes around with the bullets in their pocket.
Don't denigrate Barney Fife. Get out of here.
Don Knotts.
I was at Raw last night. This person said, I thought the Brock Batista segment was awesome. I agree. Crowd was super into those segments as well as the women's brawl. But no joke, a woman sitting in front of me fell asleep during the Baron Corbin match. Well, I'm sure she wasn't the only one there. And this person here says, just watch your match for a second. I thought I was watching the Rollins-Lesnar angle from last night. That's right. It was a very similar match, I might add, to what you'll see at WrestleMania. I listened to Observer Radio this morning. Was that an April Fool's joke from you guys about Kurt and Zack Ryder challenging for the Raw tag titles? Well, it's not official right now, but WWE uploaded a post-Raw video where Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins challenged the Revival to a tag team title match at WrestleMania. Dash Wilder told them the Revival will take it under consideration. I don't want to be that guy. I told you this months ago. When the Revival had heat, and they started to give that push to Hawkins and Ryder. And I said, oh my God, Hawkins is going to get his win over the Revival. And they put it off, and now it's coming. Back in a moment, Observer Live. All right, not to nitpick here, but before we go to the phones, this fella here says it's probably not 100% accurate, but I have a list of charges that the three women would face. Becky would face 3 counts of assault and resisting arrest. Charlotte would face 9 counts of assault, 5 counts of assaulting an officer, and 4 counts of resisting arrest. Ronda would face 3 counts of assault, 5 counts of assaulting an officer, 2 counts of resisting arrest, misdemeanor vandalism, grand theft, and assault with a deadly weapon. They're out.
I've seen famous white women in D.C. get away with more.
Wrestling on Sunday, everybody.
Can I just point something out, too, about the Revival thing? I know you called it, but it's still so incredibly, ridiculously stupid to me that if they are leaving, which it would seem like they are, at least there's all this stuff with AEW where you put the belts on them to take them off of them and get the the guy who hasn't won a match in 550 matches or whatever it is, and you reward them at WrestleMania but I just, that's what I don't understand about that. It's what I didn't understand about, like, if they were going to prominently put Dean Ambrose in a position where it's like, if you're concerned with these people leaving or if there's contract strife, I just think back to like Jericho and WCW and times like that where it's like, anytime you put a belt on a guy or anytime you do that to try to get him to stay, how often does that really work?
Well, there's 2 things going on. So, I mean, sometimes it works, but it usually doesn't. And there's 2 things here. Number 1, the Revival's contract, they're disgruntled, okay? And they made it known that they want it out. But, well, I think they'd argue that they made it known, but I think everyone feels they made it known they want it out. So, as far as I know, their contract does not expire until, like, early 2020, mid-2020. So they would have to be released from their deal, okay? I don't think they're getting released from their deal. You know what I think is honestly going to happen? I think that if they have annoyed Vince enough and he gave them the titles and they're still bothering him, I think what he's going to do is he's going to break them up and he's going to have them go as singles guys and they'll be on main event or whatever. They'll lose all the time and he'll just make them miserable until their contracts actually expire. I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know that for sure. But the thing with Hawkins and Ryder is they're both New York City guys. And so I think the whole idea is we'll get a giant pop. The 2 New York guys that never win are going to win the tag team titles at WrestleMania, and New York will go absolutely crazy for them, and that's it. That's what I think is going to happen. I have no inside information on any of this, except that I think the Revival's contract, they're here for at least another year unless they get released, and I don't think they're getting released. Like, if I'm WWE and they're these two guys, and they want out, and they're not being quiet about it, and they're being annoying about it, I mean, I don't give them the release. No, I break them up, and they're going to suffer. As opposed to what they should have done, which is, listen, God bless the Revival, okay? I don't want to sound anti-Revival here, but you signed this damn contract, okay? You signed the contract. So, like, you're not happy with what's going on. There's a lot of people that aren't happy, okay? But your best bet is to just, like, shut up and live out this contract and hope one day Vince wakes up and decides he wants to give you a push, because that happens sometimes. It does happen. But trying to make a big deal about it and cause trouble and be annoying and everything else, I mean, you are asking for it as a contracted performer. It's maybe an unpopular opinion. I'm just telling you what I think, especially having watched this company for so long.
Well, WWE would always have his revisionist history to go, you know what? I don't care what those guys say. They were the World Tag Team Champions on WrestleMania. And that will technically be true. It's like Austin Aries getting a shot at the Cruiserweight Championship at WrestleMania. It's like you can spin any story, I guess, the way you want it. And they're the best tag team in the world, or they're one of the best tag teams in the world, certainly in the country. And if given 20 minutes, those teams could probably have a really good match. And this is probably going to take place on the pre-show. And I don't know what time they're going to have because of everything that's going to be going on. But it's not really about the match as much as, for me, I've been surprised in the way they've treated some things where I wouldn't even break them up and make them miserable unless they were really making you miserable. But, you know, they've have people sitting at home doing nothing, you know, that they could be doing something more that don't have issues with wanting to work there. So it surprised me the tact that they've taken in some of these ways.
Person says, if one of the three women were to get a concussion from that incident yesterday, would they still go forward with a triple threat main event? No. If one of them suffered a concussion and they could not get cleared, there would not be a three-way main event. They would be out of the main event. Just like Becky was out of the main event of Survivor Series after they put all of that work into it. She was the hottest. She was at her hottest over that Survivor Series weekend, and she could not get cleared after Nia Jax punched her. And so that match was canceled. So yes, if someone got a concussion yesterday, they would be pulled from that main event. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, Bryan, this is Joe in Los Angeles. I just wanted to chime in on the independent contractor thing. I think you were on the right track yesterday. My question would be, and I don't know the answer to it, but what does the talent prefer? What would they prefer to have happen? It's easy to sit here and say, yes, they should get all this. But if I compare it to, let's say, the NBA, LeBron James plays for the Lakers. So they play tonight in Cleveland. Game's over. They have 13 guys on the roster. They all have to pile onto the team bus together, go to the airport, all hop on the same airplane together, fly to the next city, whatever that may be. They all have to be up the next day for team shoot-around at 10 a.m., whatever it is. You compare it to, let's say, Roman Reigns, top guy in WWE. When the show's over, he can leave. He can leave during the show if he wants to. He can rent a car. He can buy a bus. He can get a plane ticket. He can eat when he wants. He can ride with whoever he wants. He can work out whenever he wants. His only obligation is to be at the next show at 6 p.m. That's all he has to do. And
yes,
he has to pay for travel expenses and this, but it's all tax deductible. Health care.
Well, let me. Yes, I want to jump into this because I want to have a little bit of time before we have to go to the break. But on this topic, and on a lot of the topics that we talked about yesterday that were on that HBO show that we discussed, the reality is it is not black and white. And when you ask me what the wrestlers prefer, you have to ask every wrestler. Because the reality is there's some wrestlers that would prefer to get on that bus and not have to worry about booking their hotel, not have to worry about getting a rental car, and just be taken from place to place and be all set up. There are other wrestlers who, yes, they don't want to be thrown on that bus with everybody else. They don't want to have to stay in whatever cheap motel WWE is going to book for them or whatever. They want to be able to choose the kind of car that they ride in. I mean, whether it's fair or not, this is the way things are going to work. they're either going to pay, I'm just throwing out random numbers here, they're either going to pay everybody $250,000 and you pay your own road expenses, or they'll pay for all that stuff, but they're going to pay you less. They'll pay you $200,000. And the reality is, I mean, to me, this is me. I'll tell you what I would do, okay? I'd prefer the $250,000 I pay my own expenses. I'll sleep 3 to a room. I'll carpool. I will eat cheap. I'll write it all off, and I'll go home with more than the $200,000 that I would have been paid if they paid for all of that stuff. I mean, everyone's different. There's probably a lot of guys who would disagree with that. Next time Lance is on the show, we'll have him discuss his thoughts again. Dave, you know, when I mentioned this to Dave, he thinks that Lance would be in the minority. I don't know if he would be in the minority. But a lot of these things that were discussed on the show, that everybody just thinks it's black and white. The wrestlers it'd be better for them if they were this. It would be better for them if they were that. It'd be better. Everybody's different. Some wrestlers are going to agree, but not all of them. So it's not just a simple answer. I mean, I don't know what other ones you want to discuss, but trying to think.
Look, I'm pretty pro-labor. I'm pretty pro-union for the most part. But and I'm not saying that wrestlers, like I said yesterday, should not unionize, or more than that, have some sort of collective bargaining, have some sort of maybe an agency to maybe where the multiple agents involved in the mix, bigger ones, things that maybe could try to help their cause. But the reality is, everybody, it's like the caller brought up yesterday, Sitting Duck brought up yesterday about, well, if they were unionized. But the problem with that is, the talk of making them unionized goes out the window. What you need to figure out when it comes to unions is, how do you get these guys on the same page? From there, then you can use it as a weapon to talk about how you can use a weapon, a union against Vince McMahon, and how you can collectively bargain. But everybody always wants to say these guys should unionize. Maybe they should, but somebody needs to get them all on the same page first and figure out how to do that, because otherwise you can't keep throwing it out there as it's a talking point. It's not. They're not going to unionize. And if they are, you need to get them together. So how do you do that? Answer that question. And these wrestlers really kind of need to look at each other too, because if one of your buddies was not allowed on the Saudi Arabian tour, and he didn't go, and you guys, nobody quit, nobody spoke up, nothing was dramatically done, and you just go ahead and go on that tour, I don't think you're using your strength as a unit to your best advantage. And if they're not going to do it for that, I can't see them doing it so somebody else can get a hotel room.
All right, we're going to head to a break in just a moment. When we come back, we're going to talk independentwrestling.tv, Beyond Wrestling, and more. Special guest today, Drew Cordeiro. Back in a moment, Wrestling Observer Live.
All right, Mike Sempervive.
Hey, there I am.
Hey, Bryan Alvarez doing the show on mute.
I'm a pro. I got the mute button on. My
Jesus.
God. All right, seriously, everybody, let's pretend that never happened. Drew Cordeiro joining us here today. How you doing, Drew? Oh, did I even push the wrong button there? There we go. Drew, are you on the air?
I'm here.
I swear to God, I'm a professional. This is live radio. This kind of thing happens. How you doing today?
Live, yeah. That's the name of the game, huh?
That is the name of the game. Yeah, my mic was muted, then your channel was muted. All we had was Mike. It was a disaster.
An unmiked mic, and you didn't even let me go.
That's right. All right, we got to talk about a lot of stuff here today, including Beyond Wrestling's new weekly series, Uncharted Territory, which is going to be kicking off, what is it, tomorrow, April 3rd, 8 Eastern. Kicking off the Mania Week schedule, Beyond Wrestling's new weekly series every Wednesday night, new episode, live from Worcester, featuring a who's who of independent wrestling's top stars. Tell us about this show.
Sure. So, the goal of Uncharted Territory, we have a lot of goals with it, but the main goal is to kind of expedite the process of discovering new independent wrestling talent. There's been dozens of wrestlers that have passed through Beyond Wrestling that have been signed to exclusive contracts, and it seems like it's happening at an even quicker rate. Just going through some of the competitors just from the last few months, like Tracy Williams, Kylie Ray, Penelope Ford, Stokely Hathaway, MJF, Brian Malonis, Karen Q, PCO, Mia Yim, Brody King. These are all wrestlers that competed for Beyond Wrestling within the past few months, and they're no longer available. It's going to be our goal with this program, live every week on Independent Wrestling TV and Fight TV, to be able to speed up that process to try and give, overlooked, underrated wrestlers a platform to have that big break, because that's something that we're known for. It's something that we've done time and time again, where a competitor like Keith Lee may be unknown in Texas for 10 years, but come to Beyond Wrestling and have a match, and the stars align, and it's off to the races at that point.
Was he really working for 10 years?
I had heard from him somewhere in that vicinity. I don't know if it was consistently, because he was back and forth with, I believe, Arena Football. But he had 3 WWE tryouts, from what I understand, prior to coming to Beyond Wrestling. And, they didn't sign him those 3 times. They signed him afterwards. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say that Beyond Wrestling is taking credit for anybody's success. The best that we can do is provide a platform and, give the wrestlers the freedom and flexibility to perform to the best of their ability.
Well, Drew, to be fair, I mean, in a case, and this is not to bust, the stones on ROH, but like Donovan Dijak seemed to be, when he was with ROH, he had the top prospect thing with Leo Rush and everything, but he ended up leaving there and actually really ramping up his profile, working for you and working, back on the indies again.
Sure.
So you can actually take some success there.
And it's happened time and time again with different wrestlers where, they'll get, maybe a level of notoriety in a different organization, and they're able to come to Beyond Wrestling and really find themselves, who they are as a performer. We saw it happen with Drew Gulak. We saw it happen with Tracy Williams most recently. Orange Cassidy's been blowing up for the past few months, and it really is about
till Friday
putting together a format that allows the performers to just feel comfortable in their own skin and let them do what they do best. It's not to be overproduced, and that's something that I want to be very clear about. Uncharted Territory is not designed to be a weekly television wrestling show. It is designed to be a 2-hour-long independent wrestling event that just so happens to happen every week at the same time.
So what is the format of the show? I mean, what's the idea behind it? Obviously, there's, if you're going weekly, I mean, there's got to be a lot of content to fill that time. So what's the idea behind the show?
I mean, the idea behind the show is to just continue to give a platform.
I mean, the format, the format of the show. How's it going to be formatted?
It's gonna. The best way that I could explain it is, if you've been following Beyond Wrestling for years, it's going to be like the best second half of a Beyond Wrestling show that you're used to seeing. Where we're going to be tightening it up, and we're not going to be limited to some of the constraints of what would be a television live viewing experience. We're going to shoot for 2 hours. Some episodes might fall a little bit short. Some episodes might go a little bit longer. But, I think the goal is to strive to have between 5 and 7 matches each week. It's going to be very wrestling heavy. I think there's going to be opportunities to maybe put interviews and plugs and promos and sponsors and stuff like that during entrances. But I'm looking at the first 4 months of this, which is being looked at as the first season, the first 18 episodes, as kind of like that entire process is going to be almost like treated like a pilot period, where we're still going to be working to make improvements until, we're really happy and we nail the format and we know that it's something that the fans are going to be content with. But, I mean, tomorrow's going to be a starting point. It's just going to be like the best 2-hour Beyond Wrestling show we're able to put together.
So how has the streaming platform helped business in the sense that can now be seen, as noted, independentwrestling.tv and Fight TV? I mean, there was a time where promotions, the idea that streaming was going to help you at all, it was too early. Now it seems like tons of places are getting a lot of notoriety off streaming their shows, whether it be these platforms, YouTube, whatever. Have you seen a market increase in business since using these platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. Undeniably. Streaming live creates a community element where there's people that are actively engaged with the show that are all talking about it at the same time. It's, we get more buzz out of doing live streaming events than anything we ever did prior. And that's even with the benefit of having, a YouTube channel with 1.4 million subscribers. We've come to realize over the past few months that that's really where our fans want to see the video on demand content. And a platform like IWTV and now Fight TV is where they're going to be watching the live content. But, if it's happening live, you've got the opportunity to provide the fans with surprises and other components that make wrestling more exciting to watch, I feel.
So can you talk a little bit about the ups and downs of the last probably about 6-8 months since All In started and there were rumblings of AEW and everybody started signing everybody? I mean, I have had 6 opponents scheduled that fell through for various reasons. And I'm one guy who doesn't wrestle very often. And you're a promoter that has to deal with this like on a regular basis. I mean, what have been the positives and negatives of how everything has changed in the last 6 months?
I mean, it starts at the top and it trickles down. Just if WWE's stockpiling wrestlers and there's other organizations that are not WWE that are trying to pursue kind of a mainstream alternative and go after television, then they need to lock down wrestlers. And you'll see wrestlers that'll come and where they would otherwise be a flavor of the month, they'll get $100,000 guaranteed for a single year now. And that's awesome that type of wrestling, that type of money is being offered to wrestlers, because I think that wrestlers don't get paid nearly enough no matter what stage of their career that they're in because of the risks that they take. I'd love for Beyond Wrestling to be able to get to a point where, we'd be able to offer a similar type of compensation, but we're still kind of an entry-level point for the national wrestling scene. But where the opportunity really is what we can accomplish in 3 months now used to take us an entire year. And that's getting newer wrestlers or wrestlers that may not be inexperienced, but the crowd may be unfamiliar with, getting those repetitions in front of a live audience so that way they can build their fan base and they can build their own reputation and they can ultimately become draws. That is what I think that, we have the biggest thing to gain by going to weekly instead of doing a monthly format.
How long have you been doing this?
We're going to be coming up on 10 years in May.
10 years.
When Beyond Wrestling first started, it was like wrestling for the wrestlers. There weren't even any fans in attendance until our events in 2011. We were just taping content for YouTube and, hoping that the matches appeal to other promoters so that the guys that were investing their time to come down to the tapings, would get more work out of it. And that's ultimately what ended up happening.
So, in the last 10 years or so, what are the biggest changes you've seen on the independent scene? I mean, it seems to me, not so much in the last 10 years, but maybe in the last 20 years. Like, I remember 20 years ago, if there was a wrestler and he decided that he wanted to start promoting, it was like everybody looked at him like he was out of his mind. Like, are you crazy? It's nothing but stress. You'll have a heart attack. You're going to lose all your money. It's just a horrible thing to do. And now, I mean, I've talked to so many wrestlers who have begun promoting events, and they're like, "That's great. Everything's going well. We draw well. Blah blah blah." How have things changed for you in the last 10 years?
Well, I mean, I think accessibility and technology have finally caught up. I mean, you're talking about everybody getting on streaming platforms. I mean, I think about when Ring of Honor was on Go Fight Live and how excited I was to watch it and how I didn't, I set aside the time to do so and wasn't able to. A platform like Independent Wrestling TV has a very good reputation when it comes to the quality of the streams, and that just has to do with the fact that the technology has finally caught up with the demand. So, for an organization like Beyond Wrestling, which literally came from nothing, but was able to use platforms like social media to get the word out there about what we're doing and what our goals are and what we want to accomplish, I mean, we've been very successful. But I think maybe the biggest change over the past 10 years is what fans consider to be independent wrestling, because I think that there's a lot of wrestling that's not WWE that's also not really true to what independent wrestling is. I mean, if you're signing a wrestler to an exclusive contract, that doesn't sound like independent wrestling to me. So it's great that there's a number of different platforms out there that are giving more and more wrestlers opportunities and different promotions trying to pursue television and stuff like that. But what I feel is happening is, unfortunately, it's creating a scenario where there's now WWE, the mainstream alternatives, and true independent wrestling is kind of getting knocked down a peg. And, that's another thing that we're hoping to be able to try and tackle with the Uncharted Territory program.
It's kind of like micro brews with beer. It's like, Samuel Adams is owned by a major company. It's just not like fighting with the brewery that's up the street. It's hard to put those things on the same page. Same thing when it comes to like you and Beyond Wrestling and Ring of Honor and most of the companies that are on IWTV, trying to scratch it out there. Has there been any change since we talked last couple weeks ago about trying to fill out the schedule? Because I know you have a couple of shows and a couple of people set up, but everything on the back end was still kind of like, we'll take it as it comes. Have you been able to kind of lock up any more talent and more stable cards as it comes to some of these shows coming up?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer to that is yes, and it's just a new process for us. I saw Rory Gulak and Ophidian tweet that they had a really good match and they wanted to do it on our bigger platform. Okay, let's bring them in for Uncharted Territory Week 3 where we have a gap in the card. That to me is independent wrestling. So basically it's trying to just continue to come up with new ideas, because not everything's going to work, not everything's going to be feasible, not everything's going to be affordable. But the more ideas that we have that we're happy with, then, the more we can draw from when it comes time to putting together the shows. But I'm very happy with the way that week 1 is looking. I'm really excited about week 2 because I don't want to look at it as week 1 being the peak, and it's downhill from there. Week 1 needs to be the starting point, and we need to just grow it from there on out.
Got a texter here saying the first time I ever saw Tommaso Ciampa was at a Beyond Wrestling show. Super fun shows, good promotion. There's another one, Tommaso Ciampa, who unfortunately went all the way to the very top and now is out. And God only knows how he's going to be when he gets back. It sucks. Any memories of Ciampa?
Yeah, Ciampa's a maniac, but he's a really passionate guy. He wasn't always the easiest to work with, but he was always one of the best performers. And it's up to the promoter to figure out how to try and channel that so that way it comes across to give the fans their best value for their dollar. Some really just incredible matches that he had for us. Immediately off the top of my head, I'm thinking of the match that he had against Donovan Dijak at Set Finale when Dijak was undefeated. He was on a win streak, and Tommaso came up with the idea to maybe attack him with a loaded shin pad or a loaded knee pad. So it's like, here's Dijak, who's being presented as the top babyface in Beyond Wrestling, and he's laid out in like 10 seconds. And there's just like this still silence in the room, and then all of a sudden it's like, it's revealed that Tommaso cheated, and then they go into the match. And it was just such an elevated experience at that point. Just very, very, very smart mind for wrestling and a really gifted performer.
All right, stand by. Back in a moment with more Wrestling Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Drew Cordeiro joining us here, Beyond Wrestling. New weekly series, Uncharted Territory, is kicking off tomorrow, April 3rd, 8 Eastern. Check it out on Independent Wrestling TV, Fight TV, and more. Drew, let's get some plugs in for all things Beyond Wrestling.
Sure. If you sign up using promo code Uncharted, you get a 20-day free trial on IWTV. So you can watch week 1, week 2. And I think there's 6 events being streamed as part of the collective on IWTV as well. If not, Fight has the episodes a la carte. We're going to be doing live events. The Lethal Lottery coming up on May 5th in North Kingstown. We're going to be at Faneuil Hall on June 9th for our debut in Boston. And then also tomorrow night during the broadcast, we're going to be announcing the date and location of American Rana 19, which is our signature event. And, of course, tomorrow night's card featuring Masato Tanaka versus David Starr, SoCal Uncensored versus LAX and Chris Dickinson, MJF versus Kimberly. The Beaver Boys have an open challenge, Dream Tag partner match with Orange Cassidy and Jordan Grace. Forgetting one more. AR Fox versus Chris Statlander, and the introduction of the Discovery Gauntlet. So for all the information, it's BeyondWrestlingOnline.com. And if you don't already, please subscribe to YouTube.com/BeyondWrestling. We put up a ton of free content there.
But Drew, if Bryan wins the IWTV title, do you book him?
Yeah, he better keep his Wednesdays open.
Kid me, I'll be everywhere with that belt. What are you talking about? It's coming up this weekend. Check it out, everybody, at Beyond Wrestling on Twitter. All sorts of great stuff up there. I want to thank you so much for doing this show today. Drew, best of luck with the program and everything else. And we're out of here, everybody. I want to thank Mike, as always, callers and listeners, everybody in the studio. We'll talk to you again next time, Wrestling Observer Live.